Have you ever noticed that one person who never texts first? The funny thing is, they always reply. Sometimes within minutes. They'll laugh at your jokes, ask how you've been, and keep the conversation going. But if you decided to stop texting them today, you might never hear from them again. It's easy to assume they don't care. Maybe they're uninterested. Maybe they're ignoring you. Or maybe they're just waiting for someone else to make the first move. But what if none of those explanations are true? Today, we are diving into the psychology of people who never text first. And by the end of this video, you might look at that behavior in a completely different way. Here's what most people don't realize. For many people, sending the first message feels much harder than replying to one. Why? Because starting a conversation comes with uncertainty. Will they respond? Am I interrupting them? What if they don't want to talk? These questions may sound small, but for someone with self-doubt or social anxiety, they can feel overwhelming. So instead of taking the risk, they wait. Not because they don't want to talk, but because replying feels safer than reaching out. There's another reason this happens. Some people grew up believing they shouldn't inconvenience others. Maybe they were taught not to ask for too much. Maybe they learned to stay quiet and avoid drawing attention to themselves. As adults, that mindset doesn't just disappear. Even sending a simple, "Hey, how are you?" can feel like they're asking for too much. To everyone else, it looks like they're distant. But inside, they're simply afraid of being unwanted. Now here's something interesting. Not everyone sees communication the same way. Some people feel close to their friends because they text every day. Others can go weeks, or even months, without talking and still feel the friendship hasn't changed at all. Psychologists often explain this as having different social connection styles. For some people, relationships need constant interaction. For others, the connection stays strong even during long periods of silence. Neither approach is necessarily wrong. It's simply how different people experience closeness. But there's another reason people rarely think about. Past experiences. Imagine always being the first one to text. Always checking in. Always making the plans. Only to realize the effort is never returned. After enough disappointment, many people stop initiating altogether. Not because they've stopped caring, but because they're tired of wondering whether anyone would notice if they didn't. Sometimes, their silence becomes a quiet test. Not to manipulate people, but to see who genuinely wants them in their life. Of course, there's another side to this. Sometimes, never texting first really does mean someone isn't interested. If they rarely reply, never ask about your life, never make an effort to continue the conversation, and only interact when it's convenient for them, the issue may not be personality at all. It may simply be emotional distance. That's why one behavior can never tell the whole story. Psychology is rarely black and white. The same action can come from completely different emotions. Here's one final thought. The people who never text first often think about their friends far more than anyone realizes. They remember birthdays. They wonder how you're doing. They smile when they see something that reminds them of you. But instead of reaching out, they convince themselves they'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes next week. Then next month. Not because they don't care. Because they overthink. So the next time someone never texts you first, don't rush to judge their intentions. They might be protecting themselves. They might communicate differently. Or they might simply be fighting a quiet battle inside their own mind. So tell me in the comments. Are you someone who never texts first? Or are you always the one sending the first message? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. And if you think this topic was surprising, wait until you see the next one. Because the psychology behind why some people disappear without saying goodbye is even more fascinating.